Okay, Anders Sixtensson, my name. I come from Sweden, from Softhouse, and it's always a challenge to be a speaker first, after this previous speaker that was really entertaining, and then secondly, 1 hour after lunch, and thirdly, without any oxygen, but I'll try to keep you awake until 2:45 when we have the break. 52 years old, wife, kid, house dog, Master of Science, Electrical Engineering. And I've been a consultant actually since I graduated. And I have worked with software process improvement in different ways for many big clients. Initially, the very first company where I worked was a daughter company to Ericsson. So we went around the globe to help different development organizations, R&D organizations within Ericsson, to be more efficient, to cut lead time, to speed up development. So actually, we worked a lot with some tools that later on became called Agile. So that's why I worked 20 years, even though Agile wasn't invented since 15 years ago, more or less. Okay, and I come from Softhouse, and as I said, Swedish consultancy company. We are around 200 employees. Most of the employees deliver software to our customers. We have a site here in Sarajevo, that's why I'm here today. And we have had a lean and agile training the previous 2 days. Here is one of my students. Thank you for the introduction.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. And then we have a team. We are not only developers. We have a team of organizational developers or management consultants or agile coaches, call it whatever. But I'm one of these guys. So we're around 15, 20 people that are helping companies in coaching them to become more agile, more productive, more profitable, and things like that. And what I will share today is a model for how to scale agile, but also some examples and experiences with you. So let's go. What do we mean with scaling? I mean, for us, many of our customers have tried Agile, they have tried Scrum or Kanban for one or few development teams, more or less only in development, and now they would like to scale. And you can scale in different dimensions. That's my message coming through in some minutes here. But some of them would like to have more people involved. We should scale up in more and more Scrum teams, more and more development teams. Other ones would like to scale in other dimensions to include both the business, the product management, but also to include production, help desk. So we have all the value flow working in a more agile way. So scaling can mean a lot of things. But it's always to go from one or few people to more and many people together. And there are a number of existing frameworks out there. Scaled Agile Framework is one of them. I will show you a short introduction. But should you just take that as your map and then implement it? Our quick answer to that is no. You can do it in sometimes a simpler way, a more stepwise way, and hopefully I will give you some guidance in how to run a scaling agile ambition. Yes, sorry. So first of all, we need to know what is the current situation. You shouldn't just go fully into safe. What is the current situation? You can have different types of products, of course. There could be a cloud solution, which is different if you deliver software as licenses or software as a product as together with hardware. Or it could be an IT to support business. I have done a lot of work for IKEA in Sweden. They have a lot of software development to support the business that is selling furniture. And these creatures are a little bit different. So your approach to scale must be relied and based on a good view of the current state. What do you deliver? What is your offering? How many are you? Are you co-located? Are you geographically spread all over the world? How does your architecture, infrastructure look like? How mature are you? Have you only done Agile within development, or have you tried out more higher ambitious efforts before? And that's part of the as-is situation that you need to know in order to define your scaling agile journey. And then, as we heard the previous speaker in this room at least, you must know what is the business driver for you, for your situation. Is it to be more innovative? Is it to close the lead time until you get customer feedback, so you really build a product that will hit on the market? Or is it to be more cost efficient? We can't do so much perhaps about the feature set, but we can produce it more cheaper than our competitor. That's how we increase our profit margin. Or is it to be efficient, effective? In Swedish, this is unfortunately the same word. So Swedes are a little bit confused about efficiency versus effectiveness. But to be more effective, to deliver more value per invested dollar, invested crown, that is usually the overall goal. But you can have different focuses. And when we discuss with a client that has an scaling agile journey planned, we force them to select. We heard previously, he made one per game here, the game presenter before me. But we tell them, you must have a focus here. Maximum 2, maximum 3 business driver, which are the most critical for you. So given a current state, given what are the highly prioritized business drivers for you, then we can start to define a scaling agile journey. And we use this model when we, together with our customers, try to understand how should we scale, what should we start with. And there is 3 dimensions, and I will talk a little bit more in detail about each of the dimensions. The first one, the value stream. Here you have summarized the common steps. We have the business and marketing and sales. We have the product management. We have some development and test, integration, system integration, production, deployment, all the steps from concept to cash, or from business need until happy customer, until revenue. And as I said initially, perhaps we have only used Scrum for the development part of that value stream. And if you are an innovative company where you want to have a tight interaction with your customer, then perhaps your scaling ambition should be in the value stream direction, to be more real agile. We have the offering, which is that perhaps we have worked agile for one of our products, one of our services, and now we would like to expand that into more of our products and services. I will show you some examples. And then we have the green one, which we call size, where few people now are more people that together should work. And often the size, the scaling dimension size, is connected to one big complicated product. And SAFE is very well equipped to fit the green scaling dimension. And I will show you some examples on that. So let's talk about the real agile. Typically, if we connect to the business driver, it's effectiveness, it's innovation, it's to focus on value. If those are your business drivers, then you should try to expand your initial agile ambition from only development to include all the phases. Definition, description, continuous delivery of value, end-to-end value stream. You have the term minimum viable product, connects to lean startup movement. That you do something, you test it on the market, you get customer feedback, and based on that feedback, you do a new product release. So you try to learn and to really build the right thing that will deliver value. Home base, small, preferably small companies, some medium-sized. Then we can have a discussion of what small and medium are, but let's wait with that for a moment. Small and medium-sized, co-located product leadership. Typical problems, the closed door between development and upstreams, the product management people, the product management processes. Another typical problem is the closed door, or at least the very slow door to system integration, to production. So to get continuous delivery in place is a tricky thing. You need to invest a lot of infrastructure in automation, in processes, and in training people. this really reminds me of, sorry, yesterday we had a training, 2-day training. And initially I told my students to get to know each other. Let's start at each table and have a brainstorm, and during that brainstorm you should come up with expectations of what you would like to hear on this 2-day course. And there were 15-minute brainstorm and discussion and so on. And then I told each table one representative to present their team and their expectation. And then after half an hour, one guy left, exactly like now. And I wondered what happened. And then I heard from one of the organizers that this guy was from some of the ministries internally in the city. He couldn't a word English. He were totally wrong date. And he should have been on another course next week. But he sat there all the time and participated in the brainstorm. I mean, was it your table? No? No?
Then I was late. Then I just told him instead of him.
Yeah.
I was just they were laughing.
Yeah.
Then I was told.
Yeah. So perhaps there was another one from the ministry. I don't know. No, that was really a strange thing. Oh, let's go back here to the value stream, real agile. Then we have the offering, product pipelines, and that is more or less to try to do real agile, but for all of our products and services. So it's more or less the same business drivers. The definition is that we have separated value streams, small companies within the company. You have delegated decision power, delegated governance. They can work more or less as they want. Spotify is a good example, and I will show you some slides from that. And I know we have a Spotify representative here today that hopefully can confirm that also. Spotify is a good example that has managed to do this. Small, perhaps more medium-based. The challenge here is, once again, to get continuous delivery to really work, so we get this speedy, instant feedback from the customer. Require, once again, investment in infrastructure, in processes and skills to really have this continuous delivery, continuous deploy. And then, if you are an existing big company that doesn't work like this, then you must have an architecture and infrastructure that allows you to split your organization up into these pipelines. And I will show you, it's a lot of things that I tell you that I will show soon. I have some examples from Telia there that we helped. Governance and funding is a challenge. How should we handle the allocation of capacity and money and so on? It's not that tricky, but you must have some good idea of how to do it. You can get some inspiration from SAFE, for example, that has concepts for that. An example here from Spotify, and now I have just stolen some material from SlideShare. You can all read it and find it and download it. And there they have the concept of squad, and squad is the minimum thing that really has their own way of working. They are fully decisive to define how they should work, and they also own some part of the user interface. And they can, independent from the other squads, or tribes, as it's also called, a group of squad, they can independently from the others deploy things out to the end user. So if you can relate to the previous picture that I have, they have a number of pipelines or real agile flows working closely to each other, but disconnected. And that is a very good example from a so-called medium-sized company with my definition. And because each squad, and I just read high here, because each squad sticks with one mission, one part of the product for a long time, they can really become experts in that area. For example, what it means to build an awesome radio experience. And what you often get if you organize people work together in a value stream, innovation starts to happen. That seldom happen if you have just a function called department, and these guys, they do whatever has been sent into them as development project. If they live there and have a close feedback and connection to market, customer, and product management, then they start to understand what is value, what is really what my customer wants. And then with their skills in the technical capability, they can come up with innovations because they understand what the end user really appreciate. So innovation come as a result of this. And then, at least when this was written, there were an internal operations team that helped each of the squads to have this capability of delivering independent of each other. And then there is, as always in all companies, there is some kind of matrix, because you have delivery flows, here led by squads. A number of squads are within a tribe. But then in the other dimension, you have the skills, you have the roles, the resources. And you often want these guys also to meet, to share experience, to share learnings, to define new test practices. So all good learnings, all things that should be common, we also must have a concept for that. But instead of being organized according to skills, and then have competency networks, and then have these temporary project teams, more and more of the scaling agile companies, they do the opposite, that they organize for flow, and then they have temporary competence networks to share experience, to learn how to work better together. But the matrix, the two dimensions, is there always if you would like to have some learning and building of skills in a company. So that was short Spotify. There are a load of material to read on the net about that. And then we have a telco, a Swedish telco. There we introduced a concept called PAP, Product and Process Area Pipeline. Small companies within the big company, as a way to slice down the complexity and the dependencies. And when we could do that, then they could work independent, not fully independent, because there were a lot of legacy and things like that, but much more independent than previously. So for example, one pipeline that they could see and define on their own was the mobile TV, the IPTV, two or 3 years back. And these guys were now organized in a full value flow with their product management that had a close contact with the end users, with their architects, with their development teams, with their test team, and they could also find their own way, an own channel out to deploy independent from the big quarterly releases that they were forced to be part of previously. Because this big telco in Sweden, what they did was that once a quarter they had a big release of the whole system landscape. So, boof, because they need to do a massive regression test. So even though if you had a very small update in some system, you couldn't get out and reach your end user until next quarterly release, if you had booked a slot in that. And some obvious value streams or pipelines were in that system landscape, in that whole business landscape. So we helped them to define at least 3 of them, and then the remaining were still a big mess, but it was a smaller mess, a more manageable mess. And these ones really got shorter lead times and better value flow. Then they together reported to a PMO, a product management office. And then we had a governance model where we have a yearly discussion on funding and goals and ambition. This year we should focus on mobile TV. We need to be first on the Swedish market. So that pipeline should have more capacity than the others. And then that was spread out, the money, the capacity. And then internally within each pipeline there was a roadmap defined, giving some structure to on prioritization of the internal projects and features. But then they work much more independent than before, but we couldn't totally isolate them. So Spotify is one example. This is what we did for a telco. And then let's talk about size. Many people, often one big, huge product with a lot of dependencies. How should we manage these dependencies? Safe Scaling Agile framework has concepts and ideas for how to do that, for example. And go live is considered to be very complicated and expensive. And typical challenges is to get continuous delivery in this environment, because that is, I mean, at IKEA right now, they have 20 years old legacy systems, developed by IKEA people, and they have it all techniques, all platforms, and try to build a continuous integration and delivery capability for that whole system landscape is impossible. But we try to do it. I say we, I do not participate in that team. But IKEA tries to do it step by step and replace some of the old system with new standard system that have built in some of these capabilities. But often it's governance, it's legacy, it's lots of people, it's different vendors, it's sourcing contracts, it's low-cost providers somewhere else in the world and so on. And to get all this mess working together is tricky. And this should by purpose not be possible to read. This comes from an Ericsson unit that do not longer exist. But this is a one-page summary of what they did. And if you have a scaling in the size dimension, you usually have the concepts of different levels, hierarchies of backlogs, as we have here. We have a total product backlog, we have a requirement area backlog, we have a design area backlog, and then we have the team backlogs. And then we have different product owners, and then we have a pull, and then we have a cadence for the whole system, and then hopefully everything will be pulled down. And if we have a good and established velocity for the whole system, then we can make good release plans and say that, okay, customer, we think we can deliver this and this functionality before 1st of May. But we have backlogs on different levels. Here is another way to do scaling, and what I would like to share here is an interesting way of how they run their daily meetings. It's only one small aspect of it, but it's a good inspiration, it's a good, simple way how to do it. And this you can also download from the net. It's called Lean from the Trenches. It's a good description, an example of medium-sized software project. 60 people co-located. What is interesting here is that you have different skills. You have the requirement analysis team, you have the system test team, and then we have the feature teams. And some people, some individuals, they belong to two different teams. They had their home base in the feature team, but they were also connected virtually to the other testers, to the other requirement people. And the reason for this setup was that they together have a set of meetings. They call it the daily cocktail. So each morning at 9 o'clock, the different feature teams have their daily stand-up, 15 minutes. Boom, boom, boom. Directly after that, all the testers from the different feature team met. All the requirements people from the different team met. And some of the senior developers met to get the sync on that level. And then directly after this, there was a project sync. And this is what I call the daily cocktail meetings. So on a daily basis, they have this sequence of meetings. Most of the people did only participate in the first meeting, the feature meeting, but the other meetings were there to synchronize, to keep the teams together. One important part of the scaling challenge. So these 60 people, they were actually connected due to this meeting setup. And it was possible because they were co-located, they sat in the same office. And then they had a different set of boards, so each of the feature team, they could have their own board, and they work Scrum-ish. And then on project level, they had more of a Kanban board, where you saw the whole flow of feature by feature, how they were analyzed, how they were designed, how they came into the feature teams, how they were tested, integrated, and then available for the end user. Just as a short example. This is really good reading, Lean from the Trenches. I recommend that. So let's talk a little bit about those frameworks that exist. There are a lot of them right now, and if you go to the agilescaling.org, there are some ambitious people that are trying to maintaining this matrix of existing frameworks. Here we have Scrum of Scrums, here we have large-scale Scrum, less, we have Scale Area Framework, we have DAD, Discipline Agile Delivery, and so on and so on and so on. And each of them are briefly described with a number of questions and criteria, with ambition that the reader should be able to find, okay, what of these existing frameworks do fit my purpose in the best possible way? And there are links and a lot of readings here, but there's some good work done there at agilescaling.org. And what I intend to use the final minutes is to talk about SAFE. And I couldn't resist to take a photo of an article we have in our own Lean magazine, actually, SAFE. A helpful framework, question mark, or a RUP, Rational Unified Process, RUP monster from the past. And this has actually been an ongoing discussion now in the Agile community. If SAFE really is the right way to go, or is it just the same RUP idea, but now with new clothes and so on. And if you read that article, which is also you can find on the net, there is a good summary of that discussion. But let's go into SAFE. SAFE has 3 different levels. They talk about the portfolio level, they talk about the program level, and they talk about the team level. Usually a company that is a bit into Agile has this level already implemented, the team level. Because here you have the backlogs, you have the teams, you have the product owner, the Scrum Master, and so on, working quite well, often. When we also meet customers, and they usually have some kind of process on the portfolio level, where you business-wise decide what are the features we should do in the next slot. We have 10 good ideas, but we only have capacity to 5. Which 5 should we take? How do we do that prioritization? All companies has an idea to do that. So this works usually in some way for a company. SAFE have their proposal how to do it. It's quite simple. What I think is a highlight here is that they explicitly differentiate between business epics, the blue ones, and architectural epics, the red ones. So we should not only focus on the business value features or epics. We should also have a place and capacity for cleaning up the system landscape, to replacing old platforms and so on. And they take that notion in explicitly in the planning. So we have 3 levels. Up here we talk about epics, big things. And epics typically span over many releases. And then on program level we have the concept features, and here we have stories. Standard ones, agile ones. And what we have seen, and we have discussed this model and shared our experiences with other companies working with SAFE. And what we have seen as a general experience is that many companies, as I said, have this in place already. They have some ways of working here, but they are usually lacking good ideas and good structure on program level. And that is a real, there are some real good stuff within SAFE supporting that. They have a concept called Agile Release Train. An Agile Release Train is typically a number of development teams, typically 50 to 100 people that are organized together in what is called a release train. And that release train pull features from a program backlog. There is a predefined cadence. All the development teams in SAFE, they usually have a 2-week cycle. So every second week the team have a demo for its product owner. Every second week we also have a system demo where we integrate the results from all of the development teams into something that we can call a system demo. And then in SAFE we have a 8, 10 or 12 week, you can choose, bigger cadence where you have a ready program product increment, a PI. So usually you have a product increment every third, every fourth sprint demo. Then you collect everything and you should be able to do a full and total regression test. You should be able to deliver that package to the market. And there is a one sentence logo that I really like with SAFe, is that we develop on cadence, but we release on demand. Man differentiates these two concepts. So we should have a product that always is ready to deliver to the market, but it's really a business decision to really go live. But quality-wise, it should always be ready. And at least every second week, we do this integration all over the system, which requires quite good capability in continuous integration and so on. Yes?
Just because this ventilation system is quite, I mean, not good. Just try to open the door.
Yeah.
Close the window, I think. So.
I'm moving here, so I keep awake.
Disturbing? No?
No.
No, that's okay.
And then a very important thing that is one of the success factors for those who have had a successful implementation is the big room planning. So in a release train, the 50 or 100 or 120 people, when they start every new product increment, every 8, 10 or 12 week, they all gather in a 2-day full planning exercise, co-located. This is the typical agenda. Before the lunch, day one, we have people from business, from architecture, from product that share their vision, the bigger picture, why are we here together, what's the situation on the market, what is important to focus on the next coming 8, 10 or 12 weeks. And then we have a presentation of the now prioritized features to be planned during these 2 days. And then they start the team breakout. So the result of these 2 days are that all these features are broken down into sprints. Typically you get a chart like this, a program board. Here we have the different teams. Here we have sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. And then you see all the dependencies. That is one of the major things to detect, to discuss, to manage the dependencies between the different teams and the stuff to do. So you have the bigger picture, why are we here together, what is the business challenges, what are the prioritized features, team breakout, first version of plan for the management, for their review, perhaps some problems for them to resolve over the night until next day when the new team breakout start. And then when they have done that, they do risk analysis, and then this is a nice thing here also. 5 minutes, yes, perfect. They have a confidence vote. All of the 100, 120 people, they vote. Do we believe in this plan? If they don't believe in the plan, they will iterate one more time. But after these 2 days, each of the team then go home and start their sprint planning for sprint number 1 in the next coming product increment. But this is really a big investment. To get all people in the same place for 2 full days to plan. But this is also the success factor, because when they have done this, when they have talked to each other, managed the dependencies, then they can really work by their own, much more efficient than previously. And they also understand the bigger picture, the business purpose of this increment, thanks to the presentation the first morning. And then finally, before we end, independent of what model you use, if you go for SAFe or if you try to define your own scaling path, there will be a number of challenges on that road. One big one is the change in mindset if we should try to do working agile on all levels, including management, including the product owner, business, and so on. Because traditionally we have a focus to measure cost, we have a focus on control, predictability, and we have a focus on be very good at starting up new projects. Oh, it's very urgent, we need to start. We start. What we now need to change, and that takes some time, is to more focus on deliver that we really deliver something, that the product will end up in something, hopefully with a value, so we get our revenues. So we need to start measure value instead of just measure the cost. And how to install trust. I mean, you cannot just decide that from Monday we start with trust in this company. I mean, that you need to build that, you need to earn it, and that takes some time. But with new leadership behavior, giving good feedback, to delegate decision power, to give autonomy and things like that, that will gradually start to be built up. But it's a long process. But this is really a success factor for the big company to become agile all the way. Then we have some new roles. I mean, if you read Scrum in 5 minutes, you will not find the role project manager. And if you are a project manager, you don't think that is so funny, and you are a little bit confused. What should we do? What is there no place for me in this new agile initiative and so on? And of course, senior and skilled project manager have their place in an agile organization, no doubt about it. In the smaller sized companies, you can take the role as product owner. If you have more business oriented, to be able to slice down functionality to smaller parts, to be able to prioritize them and give good input to the team, and no longer be the resource owner. You just order functionality from a team. Or if you're more a coaching guy, then you can become a Scrum Master to coach and build a team. But then if you have a number of teams working together and make sure that all these have the progress, have the velocity, then of course there is still a need for a project manager. To get flow in a big company and to build these cross-skilled teams, we see, which is a very interesting and important concept. How do we get design, developers, testers sitting in the same team instead of in different organizations? Continuous delivery, I have mentioned that a number of times. But then also to do the change itself, new habits. A game could help. I mean, that was a good tool to really get change to happen. And this is nothing about to intellectually understand what we should do. This is really to start new habits. Learn, unlearn. We can have new metrics that will trigger new behavior. But these 4 quadrants is what we typically work with and help our customers. Yes, and I'm nearly done. Clear message. And this is what you should have in mind if you have scaling agile ambitions. You will run into these challenges in one or another way. And I think I'm up to end this presentation right now. Thank you.